Today we will see about the ballast water treatment compliance and how it is translated in the testing challenges. So just a brief what we will present here. So we will remind ourselves why we install a ballast water treatment system, what is the way to compliance and what is mean towards the International Ballast Water Convention, what are the ways to compliance concerning the testing, and finally we conclude what is the way forward. So the question that we return is why we install a ballast water treatment system. First of all, it is the environmental protection. So the invasive species, they present a major threat to the marine ecosystem, and shipping actually has been identified as the major pathway for the introduction of these species to the new marine environments. Secondly, we need to follow the rules. The convention came into force on September 2017. This is the date that is the EIF, as it's mentioned in the community. And since then, until the 2024, all vessels with 400 gross tonnage and above should manage their ballast water management and sediment with a D2 performance standard. As a third, we have to have a ticket of trade. So after the experience, after the entry into force of the convention, every vessel is subject to that and needs to have the International Ballast Water Certificate. Such include the management of the system that is related to a ballast water treatment system. If this is not in place, then the vessel will not be able to trade. Finally, the discharge of the vessel should be compliant as per rules. This means maybe local rules, national rules, or the ballast water rules. Up to date, the installation of the approved ballast water treatment system was enough for compliance, but back in 2018, CP community went back to IMO and demanded to have an additional compliance tool that will take place and make sure that the installation was also as per specifications. So what are the ways for compliance? First of all, related to the International Ballast Water Convention, the owner should select an efficient ballast water treatment system and not just a type-approved one. The administrations already have contacted several independent testing organizations and conduct sampling events in the vessels that are calling the reports. So this is part of the IMO experience building phase. We can report here that almost 60% of those are failing on the organisms that are more than 50 microns. And allow me to present some insight information that are the preliminary data for the experience building phase. We have two administrations that share data with the IMO, and we are talking about testing regimes from 2017 to 2019. They conducted 37 samplings, and there was 100% success in the organisms 10 to 50, although the 20 samples failed in the bigger organisms that are more than 50. The same pattern was followed with a different administration in a testing regime that was conducted in 2019. So this administration conducted 7 sampling events, again the same pattern, 100 success in the organisms 10 to 50 microns, and again there were some samples that failed in the more than 50. And there is a report as well from testing laboratories data since November 19, with 40 sampling events, 100 success in 10 to 50 microns, and then almost 20 failures percentage in the more than 50. So this was a problem. So what we need to do is to understand what is the reason behind this, why we have the failure in the more than 50 microns. So the following were identified. So we can have a lack of adequate filtration. We can have damaged filter screens. We can have different kinds of size screens that are already used in the type approval testing. And in the majority of the time, you have a contamination either in your valve as a leakage, or you have a contaminated ballast water tanks. Following the second way to compliance with the convention, it is to use the ballast water treatment system. So when it is installed, there are a lot of cases where ship owners are having their systems just in idle, so they don't operate them. So the system should be operable on every operation. So in order to use the ballast water treatment system, you have to select a vendor that is able to support fully the operator. The owner also should take into consideration what are these critical parts that they should be stored on board and be available in case of any failure. And then the contingency measures, that is a specific chapter in your ballast water management plan, should include all the information and the details of what will happen if the system is not functioning or what will happen in any case. Last, as was mentioned with the previous speakers, the crew training is a very important aspect. The crew should be familiar with the convention requirements and the use of ballast water treatment system that is installed on board. So the crew should be familiar with the documentation, the records, and the vessel that should keep and report to them, to every port and the flag. So the crew should be well trained on the operation. It was identified that the training that was only due the commissioning was not very effective. So the land-based training and the computer-based training are very two efficient tools that they can be incorporated in the testing, in the training regime of the crew as well. So going back to how the compliance, what is the way to compliance? This is the legislation trend that is around this circular 70. It was introduced in IMO back in 2018, and it is the guidance for the commissioning tested. This summer, there are some countries that shared circulars or notice guidance for the commissioning testing, and it is Singapore. It is not Liberia yet, but is Panama, Australia, Cyprus, and from class societies, the VGL. So these are the first countries and classes that are requesting compliant testing during the commissioning. Also, the European Union has announced the adoption of the compliance testing and the commissioning on all the members from October 2021 and onwards. We have to put it also in this regime, the USA. We're talking about a different perspective. We're talking about different protocols. So it is a different sampling. So there we have two different bodies for regulating this. We have the EPA, VGP, and what is mandated in the CFR rules. And finally, we have a very recent approach on the guidance of the commissioning, this circular 70. It was discussed 2 weeks ago in a subcommittee of the IMO, the Prevention, Pollution and Response. So we have now a new draft on the circular that will be moved forward to MEPC 75 that will take place in the end of March. And let's see what will happen there. So I would like to just investigate what is in circular 70 and what are the parameters that are measured for compliance. So we can put them in 3 different categories. We have the organisms that are more than 50 microns. It is mainly zooplankton, which is hard to render with the use of active substance. For example, chlorine dioxide, ozone, etc., or the UV radiation. And for that, you need a mechanical mean, such as a filter, unless you use an intact ballast water treatment system. You have the organisms that are between 10 and 50 microns. They are mainly phytoplankton. It is very easy to render with the use of active substance or the UV. And there are a lot of portable devices out there with a high accuracy, and you can measure them even on board. For the indicators, these are pathogens, such as Vibrio cholera, E. coli, and Enterococcus. These are extremely easy to render with the use of low active substance or UV, and these are mainly concern the human health. And this is the reason why they are included in the EPE VGP as far as it is ruled by the Clean Water Act. So what is the way forward? And for the compliance testing, it has arrived to stay. So all we should be prepared for making the ballast water management systems and its installation a success. The indicative analysis tools, we can use them in a frequently basis, and we can have a good evidence on the performance prior to any official testing. For the renewal of the ballast water management certificate, most probably after the end of the experience building phase, October 2022, the compliance testing should be part of the annual renewal of the certificate. And the request is to ask for the compliance. The compliance testing will be eventually an industry standard. And with this, we can follow the roadmap for a successful implementation of the convention and the effective experience building phase. Thank you.